Ready?
Yes.
Call this meeting to order. It's the April 16th, 2025 Dune City regular city council meeting at 6:02. We have Susan Snow online tonight, correct?
Yeah, Susan, can you hear us?
I can hear.
And then we do not have Larry or Melissa. Everyone else is accounted for. Please join me for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Item 5, item 4 is consideration of the agenda. Do you have any proposed changes?
No, I do not.
Okay, does anybody have anything they need to pull for discussion or change on the agenda? Seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you get Susan? Did she say anything? Did you hear us, Susan?
Yes,
Did you vote? We didn't hear you on the agenda.
I voted in the affirmative.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. I appreciate it. Item 5 is consideration of consent agenda. We have A through E, meeting minutes for March 19th, meeting minutes for April 2nd, bills between March 9th and April 9th, and receipts for the same period, and a profit and loss statement for that same time period. Does anybody want to pull any of those for discussion? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. Could I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor of approving the consent agenda?
Aye.
Thank you. That's unanimous. Okay, item 6, announcement. Do you want to cover that, Lila?
Sure. Just wanted to remind everybody that next Thursday, so April 24th at 1 p.m. here, we are going to have 2 attorneys, and they're going to be talking about estate planning and administration. So it is free of charge, and everyone is welcome. And the second thing I wanted to say is thank you to the Council and Planning Commission. I did not have any kind of emails saying that nobody filed their SEI filings. So I'm assuming that we're all done.
Oh, good,
Yes.
good. That's really good news. No one going to jail this year.
I don't know.
Well, I guess you don't go to jail, you just get fined for
Yes.
volunteering. We have a permit report in your packet. Does anyone have any questions? I think we have one new short-term rental permit and one that is still in process, correct? Any comments? If not, we'll move on. Sorry, I skipped way ahead. I'm just following along paper. Sorry, item 7 is citizens' input on items not on the agenda for tonight. Do we have anyone who wants to speak on something not on the agenda tonight? Oh, I got you. Bob, you didn't want to speak? Correct? Okay. Jeannie, did you want to speak?
Thank you. Yes, I just wanted to make sure that some of the issues you were talking about at the last meeting, if those will be addressed in the future with more people here. You said, and I know that Planning Commission has been saying too, that they want some citizen input. Are you expecting to get that through emails only, or are you looking for people to come to the meetings?
Either. You can send an email, you can send a letter, you can come to the meeting. I think last meeting, we were specifically talking about the nuisance
Right.
ordinance and any revisions. So if you had anything, I mean, you can either mark up the ordinance, you can send a letter, however you want to do it. You can come to the meeting and we're going to have that discussion again tonight. If there's something specific to the nuisance ordinance, we'll talk about that tonight.
Okay, and the only other thing is, once again, the order of when citizens can speak makes it a little difficult to add anything to the meeting. I do really appreciate that the planning commission now has made it where you can speak in the end if you want to reflect on anything they've said or they're talking about. It would be nice if citizens were afforded to speak if they hear something in the meeting that concerns them. It's hard to talk before when you haven't spoken yet.
Okay, thank you. And Paul and Linda, did you want to speak?
Yes, well, first of all, I agree to that. That's a good comment. And also, I wanted to know, when you mentioned, did you say that they were state's attorneys?
They are doing the state planning and administration.
State planning?
It's
state.
Yeah.
And are those local attorneys?
They are,
Yeah.
out of Florence,
Did you get, there's a flyer in here. You want a copy of the flyer?
I have not, thank you.
Okay.
You can have mine.
I was just curious about that. And then the second question I had is, you said you issued, or Dune City has issued, thank you, another permit for short-term rental.
We have one on the list of permits, a new application. And there's one that is not listed as new, but it's still in review. So it wasn't on the city's website as of yet, but I think it was just about complete our review. Because we've got to wait for the county to look at the septic system and that sort of thing. We verify our water rights and the septic system and ownership, and so there's some of those, it takes weeks sometimes to get back the answers. So anyway, there's one new one listed on Alder, 84308 Alder Drive is a new application for a permit.
So within that process, do you notify the neighbors? Like, hey.
They do. Well, yes, we do. It's part of the package now that you pay as part of your fee to notify, and we send the notice now. In the past, it said they would notify, and I guess that wasn't happening.
So the existing neighbors will be notified that there will be a short-term rental
They should get a
coming, or
postcard
it's
or,
been already approved?
I think it goes out with the application so that actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not.
Because we don't take comments on the application per se, but they're obligated to notify if it's going to be a short-term rental. So I think when it's approvable, the notice goes out, so you know, they have to supply the who to call, emergency number and who's the owner, and is it a different person? Some use a management company, some don't. And so, it's a 500-foot radius now from the short-term rental. Gets a notice.
No, makes no sense whatsoever to me. So,
I mean, from whatever that address is, we look on the map and we go 500 feet each direction to make sure all those residents are notified. So that's just a measurement, we just 6 or 8.
and that seems to
surrounding
be
residents.
acceptable to residents?
We had 6 months worth of meetings about this, 9 months worth of meetings. And I think it used to say 100 feet. The old ordinance was basically just the next door neighbor. So we made it 500, and I think we looked at other neighboring communities as well to see what the state of the industry was. That was pretty common.
And then the last final question on that short-term rentals, have you reached a cap of how many permits or how many rentals
No,
in the area that will be?
this would put us at 32, right? And the cap was 35?
The cap was 35.
So yeah,
Yes.
we had one that rescinded. I think
Yes.
we were at 32, we went back to 31, and then
Now we have Alder.
this is 32, right? So it's less than it's a smaller number than we used to have, but yeah, we picked 35 and we haven't reached 35. I think this will put us at 32 if this is approved. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Sorry, I already covered 8B, the permit report, and 8A Our first budget meeting will be April 30th, 2 weeks from tonight, here at 6 p.m. The second budget meeting would be the following city council meeting. I'll talk about that in 1 second. Duke specifically, we had talked about our septic ordinance at some previous meetings, done some research with the state. I think there are some revisions we could make to make that more user-friendly, so, okay, so we will, when we get through the nuisance ordinance, we'll reintroduce that. Talking to the state, you could, and there's actually guidance out there for self-inspections, but our ordinance specifically says it's gotta be a licensed septic company using a specific form, and the state doesn't require that form for whatever reason, the city did, so we can either provide forms, there's some other information out there, there's other forms that are acceptable, so we'll visit that. And then, not urgent, but maybe important, our city charter, so state law, if you want to run for office, state law says you either get signatures, you create a short petition, and the office determines how many signatures you need. In the case of city council, it's 20. State law also says, or you pay a filing fee. Most places, you have a either or. Turns out Dune City doesn't allow a filing fee. The law says for the filing fee, but we don't have a filing fee. So this came up last time, you know, we go through the signature verification and they said, Chris, 2 of yours don't check out, you gotta go out and get more signatures. And so, and we have no idea if we're getting registered voters when we're getting signatures. So if we want to add the option for paying the filing fee, which goes to the city to verify that you're a resident and that sort of thing, we need to change the charter. So it can be a city-initiated change. We notify Lane County, they'll put it on the next available ballot. And there is a spring ballot. It's too late for a spring ballot. I think we have a school board member on the spring, but we can look at next fall. If it took effect if we voted for this next fall and it passes, it would then affect the other 3 council members that need to run. You, Melissa, you're in the next election, and the mayor's every 2 years, so I would be on that as well. And so this is a city initiated, so it's really up to the council if you even want to pursue it. Lila and I have talked about the dates. We'll check in with Lane County and see what all's involved. But last time we only had 1 councilman on the ballot, and we ended up with 2 council that were write-ins. It would make it easier for a resident if they decided they would serve. All you have to do is fill out the application and give it to Lila and pay like $20 or $25. There's a prescriptive schedule. It's capped, like governor is the most expensive. I think governor and attorney general is like $200, and it goes down. So it basically says local judges and local offices are like $25. So there's some guidance there. We just have to pick the number. The number's not on the ballot initiative. It's just allowing it, and then it would be up to city staff. They would get the $25 and do the paperwork and do the verification. Right now, Lila had to drive to Eugene twice with ink signatures for verification. So it ended up costing the city a lot of money in hours and mileage to get there back and forth, and we had to do it twice. So, you know, we ended up, Chris, we had to send yours back the second time. Otherwise, there would have been no councilman on the ballot whatsoever, just because we're following the rules. So anyway, if you guys are comfortable with that, it would be either or. You don't have to pay. You could do signatures, or you could pay and be done with it, pay your $20 or whatever, and, if you want to run for office. So gives the public, if they're interested in running, a simpler option. So if you guys are okay with that, this is not an action item, it's just for discussion, and then we'll put together what the steps are, we'll bring it back to council.
Personally, I think it should be both.
Right, it could be either or, oh, you mean get signatures and pay $25?
Yeah.
The problem was, we can't verify signatures, we have to take it to Lane County, the way it's set up. And so, they won't take a fax or an email, you have to bring ink signatures.
25, I see.
Yes,
Yeah, well,
so this would make
the problem then to pay the fee. then.
this would put it at a local level. Lila could say, they paid the fee, they live here, they're on the ballot. That's how most communities are,
I like that.
because it's allowed, but our charter is specific to a petition. It doesn't give us the option that's covered by state law. So this would be like our last ballot question. Simply follow state law. That's all we're asking to change, is to follow current state law. So it wouldn't be any different than any other community that follows the state. So if that makes sense, we'll put together something a little more formal and put it to a vote, and then we'll see what agenda what ballot we can make. All right. And then budget date. The next item of new business, 10A, is potential change for council meetings. So we had scheduled budget meeting on the 30th, hopefully to be finished by the 7th, 1 week later at the council meeting. Well, it turns out myself and the council president and one of the other members of the budget committee will all be out of town on the 7th, but we would all be available on the 6th, on Tuesday night instead of Wednesday night. If you guys are amenable to moving the city council meeting and the budget meeting up one day, I think we would all be available. But if that makes you unavailable, let me know. We gotta make sure we have a quorum and we can get through the meeting. So, do you have conflict?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay,
So
so
it's
Rich?
when?
It would be Tuesday the 6th instead of Wednesday the 7th. Our normal date's the 7th. We move up one day.
I can do that.
Okay?
Good.
Okay, and then so Susan and I talked, I think Susan's good, Alan was good on the budget committee. Is Joe on?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Joe? Can you come to budget committee on Tuesday the 6th instead of the 7th?
Good to go.
Good to go, yes. Okay, then we'll double check with Melissa, but it sounds like either way we got a majority of members, so we'll plan on moving that date up to the 6th.
That's council meeting. Yeah.
Yes, council meeting as well, because the whole thing still starts at 6. We'll go through what should be hopefully just a final review of the budget and then right into the city council meeting.
So we don't have a budget meeting on the 14th?
We do still, but
If
that's,
it's needed.
yes.
If it's needed, okay.
Right.
All right.
So we've already run through a first draft, so your handout should be very complete this year. I hope it takes less meetings. All right. Yeah, and if we get it all done on the 6th, then the rest will be canceled, and we'll get that scheduled. All right. Okay, then we'll post accordingly and get the materials out in time for that. And then the next item is a possible contract for a planner. So Lila was hired as our planning secretary and then promoted. So we haven't really had a planner. And we have a proposal from basically a contract employee. He has a lot of experience in this area. And he's willing to do this on an hourly basis. So his resume is in your packet and his experience. His billable rate's $150 an hour, which is a lot more than any of our employees, but he would only be paid as needed just for planning review. So his number of hours would be much smaller. So we would have like an annual not to exceed contract amount.
Susan asked what we're looking for them to plan, anything in particular?
Well, it's anything that requires like recommendations, planning commission and all those things that historically Lanny did and then Lila started doing before Jamie retired.
And I know that Pam is expecting some subdivisions that are gonna need some planning.
Yeah, so if we have an actual
expertise that we don't
subdivision
have.
map, there's a whole bunch of routing and, Luba and our old planners in the audience has some experience in this area, and we've been leaning on certain volunteer retired people sometimes as needed, but anything you want to add, Rapunzel?
So did you say this is not one of the LCOG planners?
No.
This is a private guy?
Yes. So as needed, you would review applications and that sort of thing for us.
So what's the difference between this guy and Elko?
I think LCOG will give us guidance, but this would function as our employee.
So does LCOG.
Okay,
You pay them a fee like contract.
similar hourly. Do you know what their hourly is for LCOG?
I know it's expensive, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah.
The city used to use them as the planners per se.
Okay, good point, because we could compare, we got the same, we're doing a GIS map right now, and they said, you have an allowance, and then we'll give you the hourly rate if you go over, and I don't know what that rate is yet, we haven't gone over, but we can check on the planner as well.
And I have, the LCOG planners are great,
Right.
and they taught me, anyway, that's.
No, good point, yeah, let's do a comparison, so this is here for your consideration, and then we'll see, I think we have another option available to us, and we'll come back with a comparison of those before we proceed.
Well, another thing too is we wanted somebody to be able to train Pam,
Yeah,
train somebody here in the office to be able to do this.
all right.
Will,
Because we have nobody here that
does
can.
LCOG do that, or?
I think
I can
they'll
ask.
answer any questions you have, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in Eugene, they're local all the time, you know, you can always, I mean, we've had great luck with legal advice, a number of things, ballot initiatives, yeah, they're really helpful. So yeah, let's check into that.
And we're gonna need somebody because we're getting ready to go through that whole, ordinance to recoup all that,
The land use,
not the land, well.
they've been through the land use, right?
Yeah.
We have their recommendations.
Construction standards and all that.
Oh, just the land use chapter, they've already commented on that. Some of the recommendations we have are from them, that you need to take this out and change the wording to comply with state law, that sort of thing. So they've already reviewed that, but, and I didn't even think of that responsible, thank you. So yeah, we'll get a comparison between the two.
Did we know, did we get the setbacks for, commercial property, is that on there for review and change?
In the land use ordinance,
Yeah.
259? Did we change setbacks in 259?
Not that I know of. Was
Well-
it never came up?
The
Yeah, I don't
existing,
remember the comment.
the existing setbacks on, commercial is 25 feet, which takes in over 2/3 of my building, which is ridiculous. And,
25 feet where, side yard, front yard?
from front yard on commercial. But I have found absolutely no properties that's commercial anywhere in the state that's any more than 5 feet for commercial. So basically, if,
The planning commission recommendation is gonna come to city council, so we'll have that conversation. I mean, you'll see it again.
it just appears that she doesn't know what I'm talking about, so obviously it's not come up.
No,
I've
yeah.
talked about
No
it
one has
several
submitted
times, so.
any comments about setbacks in the commercial zone, so it's
Yeah,
a new comment.
I don't remember anything when I was on.
It's a new comment, we haven't heard it before.
I beg to differ, I've mentioned it in I don't know how many meetings.
City council meetings or?
City council meetings, planning
Oh, well, it
meetings.
may not have trickled down, because,
I have mentioned it in
I
so
don't
many
remember
meetings,
any
it's
changes.
unreal.
But yeah, we'll see
I'll
that.
take note of that, Rich, because now it's in my hands, because they've already completed theirs.
Okay,
And so now it's up to us to kind of get retype and, make the changes. So
gotcha.
I will make a note of that.
Thank you. All right, very good. So the planner, no action tonight. Next item, old business. 12A is the franchise agreement with the power company. What we hope is the final draft is in here. It's been reviewed by our attorney. It had our comments already about insurance requirements, permitting, and that sort of thing. All that is in here. So it's basically for you to see tonight. It's not an action item because the next action would be a public hearing. So we'll notice that properly for a public hearing. Because it's a very formal step because we adopt it as an ordinance and we need to reference the ordinance it replaces, which is the old agreement from 10 years ago? Okay, so you have the whole thing. It's now been published for anybody that wants to read it, so we have plenty of notice, and then it'll be on a future agenda as a public hearing. So take a look at that if you feel like it. At the end of the day, you've got one choice for electricity. It's the same choice. And they will have insurance and continue to operate in the city of Dune City. So there was a lot of formatting on this one. It was a big upgrade, but I don't think it changes, our actual business relationship. That's worth anything.
And our attorney is basically giving it the thumbs up.
Yes. And 12B, Chapter 91, discussion on the nuisance ordinance. So we took all the comments we had. If you weren't here when we had the discussion, we just marked up sections and deleted some sections, and then Lila tried to make sense of our notes and give us a marked up. I think we had some unreasonable timeframes, like a car parked for 15 days became, you know, an inoperable vehicle. We said if it's unregistered and sat for more than 30 days, and it's allowed if it's screened or if it's in a garage. But anyway, some of those terms were so fast we couldn't even respond to that anyway. So those were adjusted. And then we got comments from Rapunzel that are in your packet.
Did we have a definition for junk?
I don't know. I mean, we started on that discussion, so that's a good comment. The terms junk machinery, junk vehicle, inoperable vehicle, they're sometimes interchangeable and sometimes not. And to quote Rapunzel, one man's junk, maybe another man's junk.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Gotta be careful with that.
God can't pass up a perfectly good worn-out tractor or something.
Could be art.
Yeah. And then lighting, that's a good point. And we've had comments about lighting in the past, and I don't know where it should land. Because it's based for us, it's the street lights are the street lights, the power company owns them. But then building lighting, I think the building code requires a light at every exterior door, but it doesn't require 6 spotlights. And then if you have 6, if you aim them down, they're not so bad. I mean, some of them are aimed every which way, and so that's a good comment. I don't know where that should land, but I agree. If it leaves your property, it's like noise. It becomes a nuisance, right? If your lights are shining across the street, shining in your neighbor's window, so we could figure out a spot to put it and say they should all be shielded to not leave your property, and start with that. Not get into lighting levels as much as just get fixtures with cutoffs or shields, and you shouldn't light up anyone else's property.
Many years ago, we had a battle going on over light in Dune City, and they were using them as weapons.
Right.
Shooting them at guys. Into the bedroom.
And I know where there's a motion light that it's not in Dune City, but it's right on the side of the road. It's a commercial building, and when you drive by, it shines straight in your face. And it's in Florence, so I don't complain about it. I just close my eyes and drive. My eyes closed for a second, but it's really annoying. You know, they put it on the corner of their building above the door, but it's not aimed at the ground in front of the door. It's aimed straight out, yeah. And so sometimes I think I should just stop. Nobody's there. Maybe I should just re-aim the light. But that's a good comment. So everything else is, we had a bunch of deletions and a couple of revisions that got shorter and should be easier to manage.
I think the only thing I wrote in was equipment, machinery being attractive to children.
Yeah,
All machinery and files are longer attractive.
I agree. I thought we got all the sections that were attractive to children because it's, and there was discussion about, it said guards, and guards on equipment, that we're not OSHA. If this is your tool for your use in your yard and it's behind a fence or it's in your garage, it's your business. I don't think we should be in the business of deciding what should be guarded, because it's not a construction site, that's regulated already, and it's not, in theory, it's not open to the public anyway, so. And then a lot of common tools like chainsaws don't come with guards, so that's probably the most common weed whacker is a chainsaw, so. So anyway, we can go through this page by page or however you guys want to do it. It's relatively short now.
Right off the top, the definition of junk,
Yeah.
I think that might be real difficult. I agree, but trying to define junk may be difficult. It may be one of those things that we address it when it comes up. like when it gets brought to
Right.
the council.
If you have that accumulation of debris and someone says that's junk, and they get cited, they can appeal to council and we can decide if it's, you know, at some point you're gonna have to decide if that old trailer is a collectible or a hazard, or whatever it is.
Who makes that determination?
You. I only break ties, man, don't look at me. You guys. But yeah, I mean, so staff would have to review it and say, it's not screened, or it's not in a garage, or it's whatever, and then decide if it's potentially citable. And then if they want to appeal, you know, they appeal. They can make their case to staff and say, nope, that's pretty clear, then it's appealed to council, and then we would have a discussion.
I think if it's a health issue or something like that, then you're getting at something. But if it's junk, you know, if it's somebody's old disc that he, you know, 150 years old, he's got in his front yard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some people think it's art, some people think it's junk.
Yep. And so we left a lot of stuff, if it was screened or behind a fence, you got a lot more latitude,
Yeah.
right? And hedges can be the screen, it can be plants, it can be fencing. Because that's the reality, most of these are large lots and you come with spare stuff.
Well, I mean, I can think of one right now that, I mean, if somebody just writes in about it, it's, you look at it, it's a junk vehicle, but it is his yarder. And I'm kidding, it's a super cool old truck.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's sitting in his yard.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Do they only have one?
yeah,
You're allowed one,
okay.
right? We had that discussion last time.
Yeah, you're right.
You're right, it's hard to, who gets to judge that?
I mean,
But if you get to 27 and you can't get to the front door, then the fire department gets concerned about it.
yeah.
Right?
Since we did one pass all the way through, I don't know if you want to address the definitions now that we've already gone through the meat of it.
Up to you. Well, if there's something you want to change, for sure,
Susan's putting in comments.
Okay.
That B and C are basically redundant, like it's just what a person is.
Yeah.
A person.
and I thought we marked that up before because I think it's really person in charge is what we're concerned with, right? It's the agent or the occupant. It's who are you going to talk to if there's a problem.
Yeah.
And if someone says, I'm a renter, here's the owner, then, you know, you know the difference, I mean, but you have the person, so I agree. It's probably person in charge is who we go to if there's a
Or person responsible.
complaint. Oh, gotcha, and then D says person responsible, you're right. So did she suggest striking?
She recommended keeping D, striking B and C.
Okay, keeping D, gotcha.
Sorry, yeah.
D is in dog,
Delta.
it's fine with me. Any other comment, Rich? Does it make sense to you? So we've got person,
Well, I guess,
person in charge and then person responsible. So she's recommending keep person responsible. That's on page 2,
yeah.
definitions D, B, C, and D. Anybody have a problem with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. You're good?
Yeah.
You good? Okay, let's do that. Let's strike B and C. Just simplify. Anything else on page 2? Seeing nothing, we'll go to page 3. So we changed the stuff about feeding the wild animals. We left animals D. Don't attempt to attract wild animals, but you can have bird feeders. So we were so specific before about feeding deer and elk, and figured deer and elk are regulated by the state. We could just say, don't do it, it's a public nuisance, but you can have bird feeders. Everybody okay with that?
It's much simpler.
All right. nuisances affecting public health and safety. And that goes on to the next page, where Rapunzel's comment goes, page 4, paragraph C, junk. Any other comments? Susan, you have any comments up here? Okay. On page 5, I think we could add lighting under building and structures.
Sorry, step back.
Sure, go ahead.
See the junk machinery and all that definition.
On,
The exclusion was 4, yeah, page 4, yeah, paragraph C. Junk machinery, blah, 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 inoperable vehicles within an enclosed building and those that are screened and fenced on the premises of the building while engaged in wrecking. So basically, we're excluding commercial, right? But that paragraph doesn't sound like it applies to residential when it's behind a fence. The intent is it's behind a fence, regardless of your wrecking business. If it's behind a fence, you can do what you want, right?
you're right, we kind of got two things going on, because the first sentence is more than one piece. So we said one was acceptable, right? More than one,
With a day limit. So
for more
regardless,
than 30 days.
anywhere on your property, sitting on the curb in full visibility,
Right.
30 days is your limit.
If it's more than one. So one can stay.
Right.
Your piece of art, your old truck or whatever it is.
Then we get into if
And then
it's
those
behind a
inside
fence,
of a building or screened and fenced.
but that sounds like it only applies to businesses.
You're right, we should probably say screened and fenced can remain on the property. And then we don't have, Rapunzel, would we even allow a wrecking yard by our zoning, our land use?
It's not listed, no.
No, so, right, we need to make it clear, this is for residential, because we don't have, you can't have a lawful business in Dune City that's wrecking or dismantling. We don't even have such zoning, we're basically all residential, except those lots that were commercial prior to incorporation of the city,
So could we just end it after on the premises?
probably.
Just strike the whole business piece?
Yes. Because all of that occurs outside the city limits.
Or would you just strike of a business and just go premises lawfully engaging in wrecking? And if it ever comes up that you allow a wrecking yard of some type, then it's already,
Well, it wouldn't be covered by nuisance, it'd be special use permit if we ever got to that, and it would have a list of conditions.
Yeah.
Like, it'll be a fenced yard, or it'll be inside of a building, right, because it doesn't even exist right now, this would be for anybody that's already here.
Yeah, so for example, like, if you had a
That's
big
good.
garage and you wanted to put 2 cars that you were working over the next 10 years on, we won't allow you to do that. But if you have
If they're
the
in
yard,
your garage, you can do it, right, or they're screened,
yeah.
I could have 15 of them.
as long as they're
Sure,
screened
yeah,
up.
go as far as you want.
Yeah.
But right now, the paragraph says you can only do that if you're a business engaged in wrecking.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make any allowance.
Right, you could end it on the premises, and then there is no business lawfully engaged in wrecking, junking within the city limits. This all started with another community, this was not typed from scratch, so yeah, we do.
Perfect.
Yeah, let's just take out, does that make sense, period after premises? If it's screened and fenced on the premises, and then get rid of the business, it wouldn't be a business. And if it ever comes up, it'll be special use permit, and you'll hear about it. Perfect, all right? Okay. Anything else on 4? Sorry, that's bad ahead. Seeing nothing, we can go to 5. Any comments on 5, before buildings and structures? All right. So do you want to add under buildings and structures either a number 3 or a B specific to lighting? I like our suggestion we received. Rapunzel, remind me, is the max building height 32 feet?
It is.
So would it make sense to say pole mounted lights can't be higher than that? Put them at the same number?
That kind of makes sense.
It's an easy place to start. Because it agrees with 2-story house or 32 foot, that's described already in the ordinance. All fixtures should have downward shielding. Pole lights can't be more than 32 feet.
Come down our street and look at the lake. Oh my gosh.
And,
It's like a launching pad.
well, it shouldn't leave the property, so, needs to be shielded. And we should probably add a sentence in here that says.
How do you determine leave the property though? Because I can sit over here at Dune City and look over
Right.
across the lake and it obviously
You're right.
leaves the property. So how do you determine that it's a nuisance? Because I can look,
Back to the light meter, like pick a number, you know?
I mean, I can look clear across the lake 2.5 miles and there's a light over there.
Right.
So
So it'd be
we need
like
to be pretty cautious on how we,
greater than a foot candle at the property line or something, we can come up with a number. That's easily measured with a light meter.
Yeah,
Because you're right, you'll see it.
it's a good idea. I would want to put some thought into it,
Okay,
like we did with the noise ordinance.
Right.
Start from scratch, I would want to put some thought into that.
right, gotcha. I like the shielding, and then
I mean,
I'll look for
I know
something
that
about
rate.
brightness at the property line.
that means I shut down all my lights and then, what do I do for my insurance? Because insurance requires that you have lighting for customers, so.
Well, commercial zoning would be different from residence.
And we don't differentiate this right now.
But we could put an exclusion just to be sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, all right, we'll keep working on that. Okay, we'll keep working on that one.
Susan mentioned that the post office is very good
Is it all the time? I imagine.
for security.
They don't dim anything at 10 p.m. or anything, do they? Okay,
I don't hang around the post office.
me neither.
Can't say I blame them with some of the characters running around.
All right, any other comments on page 5? Page 6. Page 6, the noise. We found a couple of different numbers. The quieter one is in here, the 50 dB from 10 p.m. to 7. Some places are 60, that's louder than 50, obviously, but 80, so that's basically the number that doesn't require hearing protection during daylight hours, and then 90 for like construction work hours, 7 to 6. So construction ends at 6, quiet starts at 10. And then emergencies, cleanup, power outages, whatever, all bets are off if you have to run a generator or a chainsaw for an emergency or something like that. So those are all new numbers. Before it said it couldn't be audible from adjacent property. It was impossible to measure. And I think the chronic nuisance is new, that's from somewhere else, but it's a pretty good description of those repeat offenders. All right. Any other comments from the council? Do you have anything else from Susan? Or,
What if someone is doing construction at night on their own home?
then they're in violation? Well, if they exceed the,
So we kind of
you
brought
exceed
this up
the
last
number,
time.
you exceed the number, yeah.
Yeah, we brought this up last time. In the summer, a lot of people would like to do work on their property when they come home at night,
Right.
and there's still plenty of hours of daylight.
So we gave them until 10 PM, and the 90 dB is supposed to end at 6 PM.
Right. She's just asking if 80 is gonna permit people to do DIY work.
Some,
I'm just relaying that.
yeah, but no, that makes sense.
I don't know what a excavator is gonna run as far as dBs. And
Probably more like the 80.
if they're, like a homeowner that has rented a machine to work on it, I mean, he's gonna wanna get the most out of his money.
But that's probably gonna be at the quieter, the really noisy stuff for chainsaws and things like that.
Well, to Rich's point, like if I rent the 24 hours for an excavator, I'll
Right.
run that thing until there's no more light.
So you run out of gas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're expensive to rent.
Hinges on your neighbor too, right? If no one complains, is there a violation? Because nobody's gonna come out and measure unless there's a complaint.
By the time they get there, you're probably done.
Back on the trailer,
I'm actually talking about-
sometimes just ask for forgiveness. Depends on your neighbors, right?
Yeah.
Ask your neighbors if they need any yard work done when you got that front loader. That goes a long way. I don't know. But I mean, those were typicals, right? I mean, you gotta have a measurable, if you're gonna have a noise ordinance. Before it said, if someone with common hearing could hear it, it's like, that's not much of a standard.
Yeah.
Some of us hear less than others, right? Depends which way I'm facing too. All right, comments from the audience on any of these pieces?
Just my input, we talked about it at the last meeting too, when we're talking about noise ordinances. You all admitted that nothing's louder than an ATV, so why are we continuing to permit them? Why do they get to be louder than anybody else?
We don't permit UTVs in here. You're talking about sand dunes?
Yes, we certainly hear them in Westlake. We hear them
Well,
loud.
I appreciate that. That's outside the city limits. We don't permit that. It's at the dunes complex. It's the federal
Well-
government operates that.
They do come into the city limits, but no one has ever done anything about it. I'm not picking on you people in particular. I
understood.
mean, nobody's ever done anything.
It's also, we rely on the sheriff's office to patrol the streets. And, you know, that can take 90 minutes and it's not a priority. No,
No,
I
it's
understand.
sad though, but I agree
So-
with you, noises are.
But we don't permit it.
Those are the loudest.
Was your question, or your comment, we don't permit it, but it happens.
Yeah, it does, it does.
We also have low-flying aircraft from time to time. We don't regulate that either, but they could certainly exceed 80 decibels, so it does happen. But I can appreciate that. Any other comments? You came all this way.
Yeah, a long way. No, I was interested in the lighting, that was.
Okay, so we'll keep working on lighting and,
Susan still wants to know if 80 is enough.
And, you
Good
know,
question.
my comment, I don't want to regulate somebody, or I don't want to dictate, somebody's property that they can't have lights, but
right,
there's a home across the lake and they put an LED spotlight.
and it's horizontal, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem we see, is they're mounted on the side of the house, they should be aimed
Yeah,
down
you-
to light your
I don't
yard.
need to see it.
Right,
You
and
need
no one
to see
else.
it, turn it on. I don't care, but why does it have to go through my window?
Right, and if it's aimed at the ground, you would see it, but you wouldn't, it wouldn't be so bright, right? It would be,
Yeah.
it would be
So that's
very.
kind of a, sarcastic comment,
So
but
we can work on
I'm
that.
trying to make a point.
No, I get it, it's hard to put in words, it's also hard to regulate, right?
Exactly.
I don't, for Susan, I don't know if 80 is enough. I mean, that's a number that's out there that doesn't require hearing protection. So if you exceed that long term, hearing protection is required. So if you put your neighbor in a position where you're gonna do that for 12 hours, that's gonna be a complaint. So, you know, a do-it-yourselfer has gotta be sensitive to the neighbors as well, but I think it's a pretty generous allowance, considering you're measuring at the property line. You know, not right at the tool, the operator will be exposed to a lot louder sound.
We're not worried about their hearing.
Right. Yeah, so I don't know, I mean, I'd be uncomfortable going louder, but, I mean, that was just after searching 3 or 4 communities and we picked numbers, so. So it sounds like we'll have this on another agenda for lighting specifically, and then it will be, it's an ordinance, so there'll be a public hearing, we'll take public comment again, and we'll see. I don't, you know, if somebody wants to present facts to how loud a piece of equipment is.
Do we have a time scheduled for the public?
No.
Okay, so there's still.
No, yeah, after, we'll visit this again as old business and talk about lighting, and then when we're all satisfied, then we'll notice it again, and there'll be more opportunity for public comment.
Okay. You hear that, Susan? So we'll still have a round here to do more changes.
Twice.
I'll put it on the agenda next time.
Probably twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once we all say, okay, I think that answers questions, we would post it for the formal public hearing prior to adoption. And we could take comments again from the council and the public. So, does everybody go with that? We'll table that to a future meeting, all right? All right, next item is executive session. We don't have anything that warrants executive session. Per Ms. Jackson's request, anything else you want to bring up before we get to the end?
No, that was good, and I appreciate you allowing me to say it. And I know that you can't necessarily control it, but it'd be nice if somehow the city could bring attention to the fact that this is so annoying to so many of us who live here and they don't go by the rules and they go out of the areas they're supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And it's really troubling.
Yeah, well, and one of our challenges is we live next door to deep sand dunes, and they are heavily marketed by the state of Oregon for exactly that, and they don't patrol the noise. I did the ATV safety thing online, and they cover all that. And in theory, the rangers go out there, but I don't know that it ever happened. I stop there on my bicycle every time I
Thank you,
ride.
but you were saying yourself, it's not good for people's hearing, but
Yeah.
I guess someday maybe we'll do something about it as a society. Right now, it brings in money, and that seems to be what people care about.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate for the rest of us.
It was just about a year ago, they increased the level.
Yeah, well,
So,
The
I
state
mean,
did, right?
the state
allowable.
Yeah. So.
You're right, because
I
the
believe
sand dunes used to be quieter than everywhere else, and they moved it back to whatever the state was, right?
And I believe that's why we picked 90, because 90 was the dB that they had moved
Right.
that to.
And it used to be at the sand dunes, it was like 85.
Yeah.
And I don't think anybody complied, so they just made it the same as state law.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so they did it to us. We didn't have anything to do with that.
Yeah.
All right.
Summer.
Okay, item 13 for the good of the order. Susan, do you have anything for us?
No.
Nope. All right, Chris?
I do not.
Rich?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, since now we brought up the septic stuff,
Yes.
just to revisit that, my biggest problem with the septic ordinance is the city sending out the 5-year thing.
Yeah.
Still, you've got to go a long way to find any other city that does that.
We're the only one.
That's
As far as
what I'm
the state
saying.
knows, we're the only one.
I think it should be done is, when somebody moves into Dune City, hand them the septic ordinance. It's a responsibility, they're owning
Well,
it.
when because I just bought 2 years ago, and they said, state law requires that gets inspected when you change hands. And so I paid to have it pumped and inspected, and then the little chart, when we talked about it, and they said, you should be able to go per the chart, right? Which is what's in the ordinance.
Right.
And it's one guy with a 1,000-gallon system and 3 bathrooms.
Yeah.
I should go 13 and a half years.
Exactly, that's,
And my letter says, see in 5 years, because our septic guys are still sending out the 5. And so I think that's what we gotta visit, is to say, you can do your own
Yeah,
inspection.
the scheduling on it is the thing, not that we have a septic ordinance or anything like that, or how it's gonna be tested to see if it's solids or any of that, I'm not worried about that.
Yeah.
It's the scheduling and the
Right.
letter being sent out. And I think
Well-
it's a lot of grief for our staff to keep up with that. I just don't think that it's necessary.
But
You go
well,
back to
it
the
is
basics.
now, because it got put in the ordinance, and then when we tried to change it years ago,
Yeah.
Luba waited, we had an appeal
Right.
from the Low-Heat Water Users
Right,
Association.
yeah,
And they prevailed, they said, hey, your council said you would go above and beyond, so. But I think we can visit that and say it will be strictly for the chart, which for most folks is gonna be longer than 5 years. And have an option there to self-check, so that you don't have to pump it dry.
I'd say a good 90% easy of residents in Dune City be over 5 years, because there's not many kids in Dune City.
No, you're right, most are 1 and 2 person
Yeah,
households,
yeah.
right?
So,
No, I agree.
It's
So I think
just-
that'll go a long ways, and still be above and beyond, because our promise was way back when, that we would go above and beyond, so we made that bet, we got a lie in it.
But I'd like to add in, and I think Duke will actually agree. I think the problem is these inspections that are being required are not being met with the people that are doing the inspections on a standard across the board. So the company that you call sees dollar signs, and they want to get in there every 5 years so that they mandate it. They know how much money they're going to make because they know they're
Well, I
going to be
think
back
we
in
can
5
fix that.
years. When in all actuality, they need to go by what the standard is. And
Right.
if it's one person for a 1,000-gallon tank and they're allowed 8 years
13.
or 13, then by God, they should be allowed
13.6.
13 years.
that's right.
And
Well,
so,
we found somebody that does just inspections, and they said, we do it for the hourly rate, it would cost you less, and they're just gonna tell you where you're at. And, so I think it would save everybody, and if you could do it yourself, mine's really easy to get to, you know? I don't have to dig anything up.
Yeah.
I do it myself, and fill out the form, if you could do that as an option, and,
Yeah.
but I think,
so, I think we can get there, it'll make it better for a lot.
I think we need to make a set of standards for these contractors that come in, that they need to follow. They need to quit
The
circling.
problem we
I
have is
think
it
the-
says, they get to make the recommendation, that's per state law.
Well, and I think the problem is in our ordinance, it does state that they have to use the DEQ form, which is that 8-page form. And that's, so like for this new company, they don't use that form. So we have to change the ordinance in order for us to be able to use Oregon Water Systems.
So we
because
can
they-
say this or that or acceptable,
Yes,
and then, like I found that how-to guide from Washington State, and they have a whole handout on how to do it yourself. And like a 3-page fill in the blank, if you fill in all the blanks, you should be able to turn it in and have the same result. And, so anyway, I think we can get there. I think we can have some options that could save folks money, and I agree, it says in the ordinance, you'll use the chart that Oregon State University Department of Agriculture developed, and they're not.
Yeah, and that's the problem.
They're ignoring it. But they get to sign off, and that's the state. and
well, it's
county requirement.
education too, it's education for the citizens, and
Yeah.
they can push back on those
Right.
septic inspectors, right? And say, well, look, I only have 2 people, or I'm only here part-time, I don't live here full-time.
Right.
5 years is not
Oh,
reasonable.
yeah, lots of that.
Yeah.
You know, several years back, I thought we got there before.
Yeah.
And, you know, the way the ordinance read,
That's part way.
that's what I thought we got there,
Yeah.
but in reality, we didn't.
Exactly, because there's only two outfits that do it, and they just put 5 years on every letter.
I think we need to write herd on the outfits a little harder and make them
Yeah.
understand what's going on here. And it isn't just a cash cow for them to come in every 5 years and say they gotta be inspected,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I agree. I agree. It'll get some more competition, and they can use their own form and, stick to the chart, and I think that'll help a lot. And you said you had tried hiring a different company. They bought the other company, they're the same
Yeah.
people.
I know.
So, there's 2 logos, but you have one company.
I see
So
another.
for now, there's 3 logos, and there's only 2 companies, so.
There was a gal that was here when you were gone here just a while back. She was saying that
Yeah, Becky, she said Oregon Water Services does it for her
And
on the north end of Florence. She's outside the city limits. But we checked with them and they said, oh, we have our own form. It's really cheap. Our ordinance says you gotta use that other form. They don't use the form. So we need to visit that and just say any acceptable form. They collect most of the same info. Yeah.
We specify that it has to be.
And they do it for
DEQ
$120
form.
an hour.
That's when the room.
Took them less than an hour.
I know,
Just to do the measurement.
It might take them less than 5 minutes.
Right.
I
Right,
read
it's easy to get to. Yeah, you can walk right up the line.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time they did mine at the house next door, it was already dug up. By the
Yeah.
time they plugged the dye in there and tested it, it was not 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was the time that they needed for the dye to go through. And they didn't have to cover anything, uncover anything, they didn't have to do nothing.
Wow.
But my biggest problem was, is we sat there and discussed it, and I paid them, plus the filing fee, and they cut me 2 years off of what they said that they were gonna put on the order. According to so I mean, that's what gets underneath my craw, is like, all right, that's not what you said, that's not what the paperwork states that you can do. Yeah. And so that's where, you really come to the conclusion that these people are doing it for the money.
Big money.
It is their job.
Well, they need the job, but they don't need to be ripping people off either.
I agree. Anyway, so, no, good point. I think we've been collecting data. I think we can make some more revisions.
Well, a lot of people out there, including myself, aren't happy about how it's
No.
done. And like I said, I thought we had it kind of figured out.
No, and I read all the history. It got
Yeah.
better, but you're right. It's not being used the way you intended. And I think we can get to more customer friendly without violating the original, the LUBA order. So we won't get into that pickle again. I don't want any appeals or,
Yeah.
we talked to our attorney. They said, don't do what you did before. You'll just end up back, spending legal fees. But I think we can add options to get us to the same place.
Yeah, I think there's some things that we can do without making a big stir.
For sure.
I had one other,
Okay.
just me. We have our ethics thing, the 25th of June. This would be my third one I've been to, and it's really rubbing me the wrong way. We're sitting here for volunteers, we don't get paid. I think they got better places to spend their money, and I've been doing my due diligence and checking out all of the charges that have been brought up against the powers that be in Salem right now. They got plenty of work to do there. Not to say that ethics training isn't important, it is, but like I said, this will be my third time doing it.
Well, it's optional, right? Yeah, so if you've done it twice already, because you were on the council, you don't have to do it
When I
again.
read it, it didn't sound like it was that optional. Like I said, it'd be my third. There's so much work to be done. We're getting ripped off so bad at the state level. I've been looking into it, and there's some serious money. And the thing is, when they get caught, nothing happens to them. It gets minimal fees, this stuff, and
Yeah.
down here, we're about a little place like Dennison.
So you get appointed to the planning commission and they tell you you're late, you could be fined starting tomorrow. I was like, well, then I quit. And she's like, it's too late.
Like the filing, if we didn't do the filing, it was a $500.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Then you get the survey that says, how'd you like our service? And I said, well, your service was fine, but it's the whole idea that you threaten to get fined $500 for volunteering.
I just think they could spend their money looking where they should be, where the money is.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with all the taxes that they're trying to implement this go around.
Oh, man, there's a bunch of them.
The corporate sales tax and the cat tax and everything else, all the increases, they're just gonna increase the state right out of business, is the problem.
Just, I don't know.
Employee tax increase, it's like, holy smokes.
Yeah. Well, on that high note, is there anything else there?
No, that's all.
Okay, well, all right. We will. Wait, I need a motion. Did Susan motion to adjourn?
She told we need to, if you remind her.
Oh, but she didn't motion. I need a motion, Susan.
Maybe that's what she meant. She said motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Remind me.
Who seconds that?
I second.
All right, we got Susan and Chris. All those in favor of adjourning? All right.
Aye.
Any opposed?
She said she.
All right, we're adjourned at 7:07. We have a high probability of northern lights tonight.